What if I told you people are spending more money building houses for their dogs than most families spend on a used car? A tiny house for a pet, complete with a front porch, a skylight, insulation, even air conditioning. Sounds insane, right? Except it's not a joke, it's not a gimmick, it's not a one-off viral stunt. And it's happening right now, in 2026, in backyards, in vacation rentals, and in animal shelters across the country. By the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly how these things are built, what they actually cost in real dollars, which pets genuinely were for this lifestyle, and the one mistake that quietly ruins almost every single build out there. So stick around, because the last section is going to save you hundreds of dollars if you ever try this yourself. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell, because this channel is about to become your home base for everything tiny living, pet design, and small space hacks that actually work in the real world. Okay, grab a coffee, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Here's the thing nobody expected. Tiny homes were always marketed to humans, downsizing retirees, off-grid dreamers, minimalist millennials escaping rent. But somewhere in the last 2 years, the pets got their own version of the movement, and it exploded. Part of it is simple economics. Housing costs are still brutal in 2026, and a huge wave of downsizers, empty nesters, and remote workers are moving into smaller homes with their dogs and cats in tow. And they're discovering something uncomfortable. Most homes were never designed with an animal's actual needs in mind. So instead of cramming the dog bed into a hallway closet, people started designing dedicated, intentional, tiny structures, sometimes built into the home, sometimes standing completely on their own. And it's not just individual pet owners. Animal shelters caught on too. One of the most striking examples right now is the Animal Care Sanctuary, which has been rolling out fully heated, fully air-conditioned tiny homes for shelter dogs, each one connected to its own fenced, turf private yard. Why does that matter? Because traditional kennels are loud, stressful, and honestly pretty miserable for a dog's mental health. Stress in a kennel environment doesn't just make a dog unhappy. It triggers behavior problems, which makes dogs harder to adopt, which means longer shelter stays, which spreads disease faster through a facility. The tiny home model breaks that cycle. Calmer dogs, faster adoptions, lower vet bills. It's basically proof that small, intentional space can change an animal's entire quality of life. And that idea is now spilling into private homes everywhere. So whether you're a shelter, a downsizer, or just someone who loves your dog a little too much, the tiny home for pets movement isn't a trend for trend's sake. It's solving a real problem. Let's talk about what these builds actually look like. Okay, so when people say tiny home for pets, they actually mean a few very different things. And I want to clear this up right now, because the confusion online is real. Option 1, a dedicated small structure, built like a miniature house, that exists purely for the pet. Think insulated walls, a real roof, sometimes a porch, sometimes even solar panels. This is the upgraded, glow-up version of the old wooden doghouse in the backyard. Option 2, a pet zone built inside a human tiny house. This is way more common for pet owners who live tiny themselves. Builders are now designing full tiny homes, the kind humans actually live in, with pet infrastructure baked directly into the architecture. One recent custom build from Trueform Tiny is a great example. It's a 36-foot tiny house, about 400 square feet inside, and it doesn't just tolerate the owner's cat, it's built around it. There's a cat door built directly into the wall, and a catwalk with a rope pole running along the interior, so the cat can travel the perimeter of the home at height, the way cats actually want to move through a space. That's not an afterthought. That's architecture designed around an animal's instincts. Option 3. And this is the one shelters are using, a modular tiny structure that replaces a traditional kennel entirely, giving each animal a home-like private unit instead of cage. All 3 versions share the same underlying philosophy. Stop treating pet space as leftover space, and start designing it on purpose. That single shift changes everything about how the build gets planned. This is the part almost every beginner gets wrong. People assume tiny means as small as physically possible, and then they wonder why their dog seems anxious or their cat won't stop knocking things over. Size still matters. It just doesn't need to be house-sized. For dogs, the general guideline experienced pet space designers use is this. Large dogs need roughly 15 to 20 square feet just to rest comfortably. Enough room to fully stretch out, turn around, and get up without hitting a wall. Small breeds can be comfortable with as little as 7 to 10 square feet. That's not the whole house, by the way. That's just their dedicated resting zone within it. Cats are a completely different puzzle, because for cats, floor space matters way less than vertical space. A cat that has 3 or 4 levels of climbing options, shelves, perches, a cat tree, a windowsill, will happily live in a much smaller footprint than a cat can find to the floor. This is exactly why that true form tiny catwalk design works so well. It's not about square footage at all. It's about giving the cat height and a path. If you've got smaller pets, the numbers get very specific. A single guinea pig needs about 7.5 square feet of enclosure, and 2 guinea pigs need around 10.5. Birds generally need a cage that's at least twice their wingspan in every direction, which surprises a lot of first-time bird owners who buy a cage that looks big to a human, but feels like a prison cell to a bird. Rabbits need floor-level space with somewhere to hide, not just somewhere to sit. The takeaway here, before you design a single wall, figure out your specific pet's actual space requirement, not a generic Pinterest number. Get that wrong and no amount of clever design will fix it. Let's talk about what separates a pet tiny home that works from one that ends up abandoned in the backyard within a year. Rule 1. Materials matter more than looks. Every surface your pet can reach needs to be non-toxic and chew-safe. That means avoiding certain treated woods, certain paints, and certain adhesives that look fine on camera but can genuinely harm an animal that chews or scratches at them. Rounded edges on any built-in furniture aren't a style choice. They're a safety choice. Sharp corners in a tight space are an injury waiting to happen. Rule 2. Airflow is non-negotiable. A small enclosed space heats up fast, traps odor fast, and gets stuffy fast. Real tiny home for pets builders install actual vents, operable windows, and sometimes small fans specifically because a stagnant tiny space becomes unbearable for an animal way before it becomes unbearable for you. If you're building something enclosed, treat ventilation as a first priority system, not a nice-to-have. Rule 3. Light matters more than people think. Cats especially gravitate toward warm, sunny spots to nap in. It's an instinct, not a preference. Skylights and well-placed windows aren't just aesthetic upgrades. They're functional design that lets your pet regulate their own mood and body temperature. When natural light isn't available, soft, indirect LED lighting works far better than harsh overhead bulbs, especially for animals with light-sensitive eyes. Rule 4. Multifunction beats single function every time. The best tiny home for pets designers aren't building separate rooms for separate purposes. They're stacking functions into single pieces. A storage bench with a hidden compartment that doubles as a dog bed. A coffee table with a built-in hideaway for a cat or rabbit. A fold-down wall unit that reveals a feeding station and disappears when it's not needed. This is the exact strategy that makes tiny homes work for humans too. You're just applying it to your pet's life instead of your own. Rule 5. Keep pathways clear. Pets need to move through a space without obstacles, the same way you do. Elevated pets or seniors benefit from small ramps or steps instead of jumps. Cats benefit from staggered shelf heights that reduce strain on their joints as they climb. A tiny home crammed with furniture might look cute in a photo, but if your pet can't move freely through it, you've built a display piece, not a home. Rule 6, and this one surprises people. Build in a dedicated feeding zone from day one instead of bolting it on later. A pull-out drawer under a counter, a built-in nook in a hallway, even a small recessed shelf. Any of these can hold food and water bowls without eating into your usable floor space. It sounds like a minor detail, but a wandering food bowl in a tiny footprint causes more spilled water, more track mess, and more daily frustration than almost anything else on this list. Give your pet one consistent spot to eat, and your whole space stays cleaner, calmer, and easier to live in. Here's an uncomfortable truth a lot of tiny home content skips. Not every pet is a good fit for this lifestyle, and pretending otherwise sets people up to fail. Cats, small dogs, rabbits, and birds generally adapt the easiest. They don't require enormous amounts of daily roaming space to feel mentally satisfied, especially when you're meeting their specific needs. vertical space for cats, floor-level hiding spots for rabbits, appropriately sized enclosures for birds. For dogs specifically, the honest answer is that almost any breed can adapt to tiny living, but calmer, lower-energy breeds adapt far more easily and with far less stress. Cavalier King Charles Spaniels, Bichon Frises, French Bulldogs, Havanese, and Pugs are frequently mentioned by tiny home builders as ideal companions, mainly because they share a few traits. They love close contact with their humans, they have relatively low exercise requirements, and they're naturally sociable rather than territorial in tight quarters. But, and this is important, going tiny doesn't automatically disqualify big dogs or high-energy breeds. It just changes what you have to provide. If you've got a large or high-energy dog and a small footprint, walkability and consistent outdoor exercise become non-negotiable. A fenced yard helps some dogs enormously. For others, structured daily walks do the exact same job. The square footage of the structure itself is honestly less important than whether the dog's total daily routine, walks, mental stimulation, outdoor time, is actually being met. A smaller home is not a smaller life, but only if you're intentional about filling that gap. So before you fall in love with a tiny pet house on Pinterest, be honest about your specific animal's energy level and design, or choose accordingly. It's not about denying yourself a beautiful build. It's about matching that build to the animal actually living in it, so both of you end up happier for it, instead of fighting the design every single day. Let's talk real numbers, because this is where most videos on this topic get vague, and I'm not going to do that to you. If you're building a simple, standalone doghouse-style tiny structure, not a full human-scale tiny home, just a dedicated pet structure, you're realistically looking at somewhere between $200,000 and $4,000 for most projects, depending on size, insulation, and materials. A very basic DIY build can be done for as little as $70 to $300 in raw materials, if you're handy, and keep it simple. On the other end, a custom, fully insulated, weatherproof structure with real craftsmanship can run up toward $8,000 or more. If you're hiring a carpenter instead of doing it yourself, expect labor rates somewhere in the $75 to $125 per hour range on top of materials. Now, if you're talking about a full human-scale tiny house that's simply designed to accommodate pets, like that 36-foot true-form tiny build with a built-in cat door and catwalk, you're in a completely different budget category. That specific model was based on a park model tiny house starting around $198,000. General tiny house pricing in 2026 typically runs somewhere between $150 and $450 per square foot, and a professionally built 200 to 300 square foot tiny house with mid-range finishes usually land somewhere between $60,000 and $110,000 total. If you go the DIY route on a full tiny house instead of hiring a builder, you can potentially cut that down to somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000. But expect to put in 500 to 2,000 hours of actual labor, and understand that mistakes in framing, electrical, or plumbing can turn into expensive corrections down the line. So here's the honest breakdown. A dedicated tiny structure, just for your pet, is a genuinely affordable weekend to a few weeks project for most budgets. A full tiny house designed around your pet's needs is a much bigger financial commitment, closer to buying a car or even a small piece of property, and it should be approached with the same level of planning. Whichever category you're in, get more than one quote if you're hiring help, and always add a buffer to your budget, because in 2026, material and labor pricing can shift faster than a lot of first-time builders expect. Before we get to the biggest mistake people make, I want to show you that this isn't some theoretical concept happening in a designer sketchbook somewhere. You can go stay in one of these places with your own dog this year. Portland, Oregon has basically become ground zero for the tiny house movement in general, and it's home to a hotel built entirely out of tiny houses, 12 of them, where you and your dog can book 2 custom units designed specifically to be pet-friendly. Wyoming has a resort near Jackson Hole with beautifully designed cabins that let dogs roam a town square built around shed antlers from a nearby elk refuge. Maryland has a set of 14 pet-friendly cabins built largely from reclaimed materials, sitting on over 100 acres of trails near Deep Creek Lake. Even Massachusetts has a tiny pet-friendly cottage near the shoreline, walking distance from the beach. And this is where the story gets personal for a lot of the builders behind this movement. One tiny home builder, based out of the Pacific Northwest, who specializes in pet-friendly and off-grid designs, actually built her first tiny home on a 40-acre farm with hiking trails specifically so her dogs would have room to roam. She's owned everything from miniature breeds to giant breeds, disabled dogs, senior dogs, dogs with behavioral challenges, and her 4 current dogs come to the build shop with her every single day, helping retrieve tools during construction. That's not a marketing angle. That's someone who designs from lived experience, and honestly, it shows in the quality of these builds. The point of bringing this up is simple. Before you commit to building anything permanent, go rent one of these for a weekend. Bring your own dog. See what actually works and what doesn't in a real tiny space with a real animal before you spend a single dollar on lumber. It's the cheapest research you'll ever do. Alright, I promised you this earlier. So here it is, the single biggest mistake people make when they build a tiny home for their pet. And it has nothing to do with size, budget, or materials. It's designing for the photo instead of designing for the animal. It is incredibly easy to fall down a Pinterest rabbit hole, get inspired by a gorgeous, styled, perfectly lit tiny pet house, and build something that looks stunning in a picture but completely ignores how your actual pet behaves. A cat that needs vertical movement gets a beautifully designed floor-level enclosure. A senior dog with joint issues gets adorable stairs with no ramp option. A high-energy dog gets a gorgeous, cozy little house and zero plan for daily exercise. The builders who get this right all say some version of the same thing. Start with the animal's natural behavior, then design the space around it. Watch where your cat naturally chooses to nap, usually somewhere warm and sunny, and build near that spot instead of fighting it. Notice that your dog follows scent trails obsessively, and build in a sniffing zone or interactive element, instead of assuming they just want a soft bed and nothing else. Pay attention to whether your pet is naturally food motivated, social, or independent, and let that guide the layout, not the other way around. If you take nothing else from this video, take this. The animal's real behavior is the blueprint. The aesthetic comes second. Every single successful build we talked about today, the sheltered tiny homes, the custom cat door and catwalk, the storage bench dog bed, all of them started by observing the animal first. If you're actually thinking about doing this, here's the simplest path forward, and you can start today, no big budget required. Step 1. Observe your pet for a full week before you design anything. Where do they nap? Where do they hide when stressed? What time of day are they most active? Do they seek height, warmth, darkness, or open sightlines? This single week of observation will save you from 90% of design mistakes. Step 2. Start small and modular before you start big and permanent. A repurposed cabinet turned into a ventilated hutch. A ladder turned into a cat climbing structure. Pallets turned into a ramp. These upcycled, low-cost projects let you test what your pet actually uses before you commit real money to a permanent build. Step 3. Nail ventilation, safety materials, and light before you touch aesthetics. These 3 things are the actual foundation of a space your pet will thrive in. Everything else is decoration on top of that foundation. Step 4. If you're going bigger, a real standalone structure or a full tiny house, get real quotes. Check your local zoning laws before you build anything permanent, and budget an extra 15 to 20% on top of whatever number you land on, because unexpected costs always show up. And step 5, the one nobody wants to hear. Be honest about whether your specific pet is actually suited to a smaller footprint, and if not, build in the extra exercise, stimulation, or outdoor access that closes that gap. A tiny home should never feel like a compromise for your animal. Done right, it becomes something even better than a traditional setup, a space designed specifically, intentionally, and lovingly around who your pet actually is. So that's the real, honest state of tiny homes for pets in 2026. Not the fantasy version, the actual one. It's not a trend built on cute photos. It's a genuine shift in how shelters, builders, and everyday pet owners are thinking about space, comfort, and what our animals actually need to thrive. Whether you build a $50 upcycled hideaway this weekend, or you're saving up for a full custom tiny house with a built-in cat door, the principle is exactly the same. Observe first, design second, and never trade your pet's real comfort for a prettier photo. If this video actually helped you, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more pet owners who need to see this. Subscribe if you haven't already, because next week I'm breaking down a full step-by-step budget build you can follow along with, from the first cut of wood to the final coat of pet safe finish, with a real number attached to every single line item. And drop a comment telling me what pet you'd build for a dog, a cat, a rabbit, even a guinea pig setup. I read every single one, and I might feature your build idea in a future video. One last thing before you go. If you take away just one idea from these last 20 minutes, let it be this. The animals in our lives don't actually care about square footage. They care about warmth, safety, routine, and being close to the people and places that make them feel secure. A tiny home, done right, can deliver every single one of those things better than a huge, empty room ever could. That's really the whole story behind this movement. Once you strip away the trend headlines and the pretty photos, it's people finally designing space around what their pets actually need, instead of what looks impressive in a listing photo. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.